What's up, everybody? It's your boy Season. So today, in lieu of the new release of the Hathaway's Flash movie in America, I wanted to take a look at the Robot Spirits Ka signature Kasee Gundam with the missile pod attachment. I've actually wanted this one for quite some time, but I was able to finally track one down brand new. So we're gonna be taking a look at this today. Let's not waste any more time. Let's go. So let's take a look and see what we've got inside, shall we? So first, of course, just like the Metal Robot Spirits, this Robot Spirits one comes with a paper manual. So you've got that. We're pretty used to seeing that with the Metal Robot Spirits. Then let's see what we've got here. So we've got the Kasee there. He's got a greenish hue on him. I'll get into that in a little bit. Looks like you have like the binders or whatever that goes over the shoulders there with the shield and the beam rifle. Looks like you've got 3 sets of hands with 2 funnel missiles and 2 beam sabers, and then it looks like you have an alternate version of the V-fin, so you've got that. Let's see what else we've got in here. Oh wow, look at that stand. I like that. With the picture of the Kasee, so Mobile Suit Hathaway, the Lightning. Well, Hathaway's Flash, that could be just a translation thing. RX-105, Kasee Gundam. Now, the way that you say Kasee, there's a couple of different ways. I've heard it pronounced like X-I or Kasai, and then I've heard it pronounced Kasee. So I've always called it the Kasee because that's what we're gonna do for this review, okay? So you've got the handles there. Now the new for this version, because this is technically the revised version of the Robot Spirits version, this one comes with the missile pod. This is stuck on the back skirt, so, but we'll get into that soon. We've got the stand there, and you've got some connector pieces there. So overall, I would say that it looks pretty good. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take him out of the box, and then we'll put him together and see what he looks like all put together. So let's take a look at this Kasee Gundam. Now, this is the version of the Kasee Gundam that I remember most. And I think that this looks spectacular. Now, it does have a greenish hue on it, kind of like the Double Zeta. If you remember in some of the old artwork from way back then, that they had some that had more of like a greenish tint or a hue to them. And this one has that as well. But I would say overall, it looks very, very good. Now, there is not any metal in this as far as I know. So this is pretty much just like a basic 1x144. And this kind of shows you the height of the Kasee because it towers over most mobile suits. And actually after this, after Hathaway's Flash, that's when the mobile suit started to get smaller. So, and that's when F91, even though there's a big gap in between years as far as that is concerned, but I think overall, I think this looks amazing. I love how it looks. It looks spectacular. And as far as the name goes, I've heard it pronounced quite a few different ways. These actually do raise up because he does have like a flight mode as well, even though he doesn't have a lot of movement in the head all that much, but I think that looks really, really good. I call it the Kasee because it seems like that's the way that they pronounce it in Japan. I've heard it pronounced in the American dub as the Kasai. And then I've heard like the XE, the XI. I've heard a lot of different translations for how you pronounce this actual mobile suit. But I think that it looks spectacular. I really do. And I have a lot of history with the Kasee. This is what made me start liking chunkier mobile suits. And I don't know, but this version specifically, not the original or the manga, the novel version. The novel version is more like what it is in the movie. But I've always liked this because to me it looks like a traditional Gundam. The first screenshot that I ever saw of it, I thought it looked hideous. And the Penelope as well, even though I still think the Penelope looks hideous. I really do. I think that the Penelope still looks hideous, especially with that thing on its head. I don't like it. Now the Odysseus or whatever the actual Gundam is called without all the armor on actually looks pretty good. But I don't like the Penelope. So I didn't really like this at first, but over time it started to grow on me. And without this, I wouldn't have liked the Double Zeta. You wouldn't see me reviewing a lot of chunkier mobile suits because it just was a visual preference for me. But anyways, so why don't we go ahead and take a look at his articulation real quick before we start adding all these things to him. So first off, for the head, he can look up, way up, looks pretty good there. Down, he's not gonna be able to look down as much just because of the length of the bottom part there. And it's actually even more pronounced in the new versions. He does have a little bit of side to side. I would say that's roughly right at 45 degrees. You're not gonna be able to spin this 360, not without taking these parts off here. But that's what you've got for the head. For the shoulder, he can raise that about shoulder's length. Now, with the extra armor pieces, these do move open, and that's actually how you would do his flight mode. But we'll kind of get into that a little bit later, but just so you can see, he does have a little bit of end He does have a little bit of out, but he will not be able to do 360 without removing these parts here, and I'm not sure that you can even do that. This fin piece here will move up and down, so you do have some room there. For the bicep, this will spin 360, just gotta get it moved out of the way. For the elbow, that's as much as you're gonna get on the elbow bend, so just an L. Of course, we're used to seeing a lot better, but this is a older figure, so that's what you have there for the elbow. For the forearm will move independently, so you can move that 360. This will also come down. This is where some of his funnel missiles are here on the inside there. Let's go ahead and move to the wrist. So for the wrist, he's got a little bit of down, he's got a little bit of up, he's got a little bit of in, he's got a little bit of out. That's all on this ball joint here, but none of this is moving really. So that's what you've got for the wrist. For the chest and midsection, now this is gonna be a little bit tricky just because of all of the stuff that he has on, but this is actually for his flight mode, but this is the actual mobile suit here. You do have a little bit of ab crunch, not too much though, just because how this sticks out and that's hitting the top of the waist there. You do have a little bit of side to side, but it's really at the bottom of the ball joint. None of this is moving in here on the sides. Let's see if he can spin it 360. Let me go ahead and move this up here so we can kind of get everything out of the way. And I would say you might be able to get 360. Let's see, I'm just trying to get everything out of the way. I would say no, you could get almost 90 degrees on the sides, but what happens is because he's just so bulky, he's got a lot of parts hitting right now. So he's got a lot of parts hitting the back armor, hitting the back thrusters. And so I would probably not risk trying to do that, but you can at least get anywhere between 45 to 90. For the waist section, the front skirts do move independently of each other. So they do move up and down. They will move, give you a little bit of give on the outside. So you do have that. For the side skirts, these will raise up. So you do have that. You got a little bit of wiggle room in there on the waist. And let's take a look at the back as well. Let's go ahead and move out these binders here so we can see. And for the back skirt, it's pretty much the same as the front skirt. So they do move independently each other. They will move out and in a little bit. So you do have that for the waist. For the thigh area, let's go ahead and move up this front skirt. Now, like I said, this does not have any die cast. This is not a metal robot spirits. It's just a regular version. So all of this is plastic. So you do want to make sure that you don't put a lot of strain on it because it will snap just like a normal model kit would. But it looks like we can get 360 on the thigh, so not too bad there. Let's go ahead and raise that up. That's about how high we can raise it without the front skirt coming off. I would say that this is roughly about, I would say maybe about 95-ish, between 90 and 95. It's not really gonna give you that much leeway. Let's go ahead and look at the knee. So you can bend the knee as well. You do have some piping in there, so that looks pretty good. But you do have a nice V there for the knee, considering how bulky he is. Also, this part will come out too, so you have your funnel missiles there. So that looks pretty good. So that's what we have for articulation. Now, of course, because this guy is so old, I wasn't expecting him to have world-class articulation. Also, his design just does not lead to having really good articulation just because he's so bulky. But all things considered, I think that it's okay. I didn't expect much out of it as far as articulation is concerned. I would be interested to see what this is compared to the newer version or the movie version of the Kasee and see if those are different, but I would prefer a metal robot spirits just because of the fact that this is all plastic. You don't really want to mess around with it too much or it may snap. So here we have the Kasee with all of his weapons on. So of course he's got his shield with his beam rifle, and then he has the new addition, which is the missile pod. You have not seen this in the movies, and I don't know if we ever will, possibly in the third one, who knows. But if he had any stability problems, this solves it, because this is pretty much like having a kickstand in the back. But you can adjust it so it can go up and down. So I do think that that's pretty cool. And it's really just using like another foot here as its base there. So I think that it's interesting. Now, could you do something with this if you had effect parts for this guy? Absolutely. But I think that overall, this one is one of those that he's just gonna be sitting there looking pretty. He's not really gonna be able to do much else. And I think that even though his look is good, his Articulation leaves a little bit to be desired. I mean, you have his beam rifle here, but there's nothing really to write home about with that either. And just due to the type of design that he has, he's so big and bulky, there's not much else that you're really gonna be able to do with him outside of him just standing there. And that's unfortunate. You guys know that I like Articulation a lot among other things, and he doesn't really come with any accessories. He does have his funnel missiles, but you only get 2 of those. You know, so that's really about it. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna get him airborne, and we'll see what he can do in the air. So here we have the Tamashii Airborne. Now this is pretty much just a standard, this is pretty much the classic seed pose, and he can pull it off relatively well, considering that his articulation is a little limited, but I think that it does look okay. Now there is a major problem here, and the fact is that you can't really connect the missile pod here because this whole connection piece is blocking this. His connection piece for this stand is a little bit different than most because it's actually towards the bottom of the backpack. You can't even see it in here. But I think that overall, I think that it looks pretty good. I don't think that there's necessarily anything wrong with it. So I think that it's okay. Not my favorite, but it's okay. Now, in order to get the missile pod, I'm gonna have to take this connection piece off. So what we're gonna have to do is we're actually gonna have to take him off of here. And actually, I'll tell you what, actually, why don't we do his flight form mode, since that's pretty easy. His flight mode is pretty simple. So really all you're going to do is you're gonna take the beam sabers and twist it like this, and then these should fold down like that. And let's go ahead and move his armor piece on his shoulder down. So twist, you're gonna go, pretty much you're gonna go clockwise, and then there we go. And then move that down. You're gonna take these 2 pieces, the armor pieces, fold these up, just like this. All right, and then we're gonna, okay, like that. And then you're gonna take these 2 front pieces, fold those up like this. You kind of see it in the movie too, where he uses his flight form. And it's pretty, I don't even know if I'd call this a flight form, to be honest, but that's what they call it there. So you take those, hold those up like that, and then you're gonna take the back piece here with these binders, and these go up like this. Now he's supposed to be very fast in this mode. He's supposed to be able to go to Mach 2. So, but that pretty much is his flight form, and it looks kind of silly. That's why I've never really had him in this mode like that, because really all it is that he's flat now. So I don't know, it's okay, but I mean, it is something that he does do. So, but that pretty much is his flight form. And I think in the movie, he pretty much was just going straight, kind of like this. And he had his arms down and his gun like that. So he's kind of just flying through the air, kind of like this. Now, what I've noticed is that these binder parts kind of want to come off. So you want to make sure that those are in. And overall, I think it's okay. Not my favorite, but I think that it's okay. So what we'll do now is we're gonna attach the missile pod. In order to attach the missile pod, I'm gonna have to take him off of the stand. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this out, because he has 2 attachment pieces for the stand. And this is the first piece, but you can't put the missile pod on this way. And what it is just this little slot in here. I don't even know if you can see that. There's just a little slot in here, and that goes on here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that off. Let me go ahead and put him to the side real quick. Hope he doesn't fall over. All right, and we'll pull that off. And then he has one that goes on his underside there. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take him, and then we're going to put this on. Okay, I think we got it on there. So, and then we can take this, put him on the very top here, like that, and that will free up that slot where his missile pod goes. So I'll tell you what, why don't we have him kind of lean forward like he's in flight mode there. And then we'll turn this around and we will connect the missile pod. Now you do have a support for the missile pod as well. Let me make sure that he can hold this here. And what you'll notice about the missile pod thing, he's got this little T-shaped connection point, and so that's gotta go in there, and you gotta use a little bit of force to get that in there. But let's see if we can do it. All right, I think we got it there. And so actually he can hold that on its own if he's up straight, kind of like this. Let's see if we can get him. Now, what I've noticed is I don't like that connection piece because this has come off again. So let's see if we can get him back on here. Okay, I think I got him back on there. The issue that I don't really like this alternate connection piece because he likes to move around in it, and I don't know, I don't like it all that much. But he doesn't really need any support, even though he does have support for the missile pod if you're gonna wanna have him out. So you can kind of have him in his Delta flight mode, and then we can actually have him looking up like that. And so that's what you have there for his flight mode. So not too shabby, even though it does take a little bit of effort to kind of get him in there. But you do have these connection pieces, and then you have these holes here on the bottom of the base that you would just push out, and then you would just push that in there to actually go this way. And then you could have him slid over like this, and then you would have this. I'd have to cut this out, but have this, and that will kind of give the support to the missile pods. But since he doesn't really need it, I'm not really gonna do that. But overall, I think not too shabby. So last thoughts on this guy, the Kasee Gundam. Well, the interesting thing about this is that I have some history with the Kasee Gundam. Now, in the early 2000s, I was scouring the internet looking for information on Gundam as I was just starting out in my Gundam journey, and I saw this shot. And at that time, you have to remember that was right before Unicorn, that was before any of that. So really, Charge Counterattack, and then you skip all the way to F91. You didn't have Gundam Narrative, you didn't have Unicorn, you didn't have all of those shows back then. And I remember when I saw this shot, I said, that doesn't even look like a Gundam. What is that? And then I was like, Hathaway? Hathaway, you mean Bright Noah's son, Hathaway? Yeah, that Hathaway Noah. I was like, really? He's the main character? Because I thought he was kind of annoying in Charge Counterattack. And I was like, but I was like, it's kind of fascinating. It's kind of dark. I was like, I wonder what this is. And the thing about at that time, you could not really get a lot of information online because a lot of like the novels and the mangas had not been translated in the early 2000s. And so really all you had to go off of was artwork. I think that's the reason why I love artwork so much. But I thought that the Kasee Gundam looked hideous when I first saw it. I was like, this looks horrible. But then I saw this version and I said, oh, he looks okay. He looks a little bit more like a Gundam. All right, I can get into this. And that's when I started having the affinity for chunkier mobile suits. And then I found out what the actual story of Hathaway was vaguely. I couldn't, at that time there wasn't that many translations. And so therefore you kind of were just going off of the little bit of information that we did have online. And I was like, that's interesting. And I never expected it to get animated. I never expected Hathaway's Flash to get animated at all. And I'm so happy that we are getting it now. Now, back to this figure. The thing about this figure is very, very much of its time. I think this one came out roughly around 2012, 2013. So in essence, this figure is almost 15 years old. And even though I was able to find him brand new, he has no die-cast metal in him whatsoever. It's all plastic. And in all transparency, I actually broke the gun posing because the cannon looked kind of warped, and so I was trying to straighten it back up and it literally just snapped off just like that. So this is a figure, if you are going to try to get him, that you're going to have to deal with him with kid gloves, because if you try to put too much pressure on it, things will start to snap or break. And that's unfortunate. Now, the thing was, I did not expect this guy to have a lot of articulation, and he clearly does not. Now, some of that is the design, some of that is just kind of the the time in which this was created, it just doesn't lead much for posing as far as I'm concerned. Now, you do get a little bit of posing in here, but I don't think that it would suffice by 2026 standards at all. Now, the thing about this is, since the movie has come out, the Kasee Gundam has actually gotten quite a few releases. We now have the high grade from the first movie. We do have a updated version of this Robot Spirits that has more of the anime look. The difference between this one and the anime look is that they took all of the blue out, and I think that has to do with the original design in the novel, is that it was more white, and so they opted to go with that versus going with a more traditional Gundam colors, which is red, white, blue, and yellow. And you are getting an updated version or a re-release of the Robot Spirits version, and I don't know about a high grade, but for this, from the second movie, we are getting that. That one will come with the new Gundam face. Spoiler. If I just spoiled the second movie for you, I'm sorry, but but it will come with the Gundam face. And so I just don't think that there is a reason to buy this one unless you are personally attached to this version Kotoki design. I love this design. I think that this design looks amazing. The fact that he does look more like a Gundam than the original version of the Kasee or the novel version of the Kasee, I think is a plus. So the design, I love the design. He does have a green hue on him, and that is to more simulate that old style in artwork that they had. They had that with the double Zeta as well. And so that is something to be cognizant of. He's not a pure white. He's more of a white with a mint hue on him. Other than that, the missile pod is okay. It does act as a kickstand, but trying to even pull that out, I ended up almost breaking the back skirt because I guess that was glued in originally. And when I pulled it out, now that piece, it doesn't want to stay locked in there that much anymore. And so that is something that you definitely want to be cognizant of if you are looking for this specific figure. For me, even though I love this design and I really like, and I've always wanted this, I've wanted this since it came out originally with Robert 184. I don't know if most of y'all even know who that is, but he was an old Gundam reviewer that used to do figures and model kits way back in the early 2010s, is when I think he stopped. And he reviewed this figure and I thought that it was amazing. So I had to have it. So I'm glad that I have it a part of my collection. However, I cannot recommend this to the average consumer, especially right now in 2026. I think you have better versions of this suit out now, whether that is the high grade or whether that is the updated version of the Robot Spirits version. I think that both of those will probably be better than this. Now, whether I'll get those, probably not, because neither one of them have die cast in them. I think if we got a metal Robot Spirits version of this, I think that it would be better and I would probably get that version. But until we get some die cast in this guy, because he's going to need it, but he's already a really big suit. Even at 144 scale, he's already bigger than most 1x100s. So I think the chances of us getting a master grade of this guy is, I won't say slim to none, but I would say it's probably less than 30%. I don't see, unless the suit is super popular in Japan, I just don't see it personally. The only other issue that I have with it also is that the funnel missiles, you only get 2 of them. And it's to the point that I thought that they looked so bad, I didn't even want to show it in this review because you can't really do anything with them. Now, if you have more, now with the updated version of the Robot Spirits, there is kind of like a P Bandai version that gives you multiple funnel missiles and it kind of has all of the effect parts that come with it. I think that that would be worth getting, but not with this guy. I've never really liked the funnel missiles because you would need a ton to kind of simulate how we saw it in the movie. And even though I do like the missile pod, it's an interesting accessory to have. You can't really do anything with it. And since there's no effect parts with this guy, it really is just gonna be there and you can kind of just use it as a kickstand. That's pretty much really all that it's for. So that's my issue with that. So I would say overall, out of 10, I would probably only give this guy like a 6.5. He just is outdated by 2026 standards. I think there are versions of this guy out now. So even though I particularly have a love for this actual design and always wanted this, even though I'm satisfied, I couldn't expect most of you guys to be satisfied. So that's what I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you could like, comment, subscribe to the channel, send this one out to all of the Hathaway Flash fans and all of the Kasee fans, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.